All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Chanley. I'm the director for Queen Anne's County Parks and Recreation, and today is my opportunity to to chair the meeting. So I would like to welcome everybody, and then at this time, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Um, Moving on to the next section is the approval of the minutes. The minutes were sent out in advance. So if we could get a motion and a second, that would be great.
Sorry, real quick, gotta jump back. We need to do the roll call.
Oh, I'm
Real
sorry.
quick and then that, yep, thank you. So I'll go ahead and start calling those off. City of Annapolis,
President Eric Lashinsky.
Anne Arundel County,
Present Tanya Asman.
Baltimore City,
Present Tyler Smith and John Leishman.
Baltimore County,
Present.
Carroll County, Harford County, Howard County,
Present, Chris Etoff and Pat Smith.
Queen Anne's County,
Steve Chanley,
MDE,
Present.
MDP, MHSO,
Thea Spriggs present.
MTA,
Brittany Sink here.
SHA,
Here.
PSO.
Yep.
Great, that's everybody. Thank you.
now we can move on to the approval of the minutes. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
And all those in favor say aye.
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 All those that oppose? And second and carried. So we'll go ahead and move on to our first presentation. Our first presentation will be on electric bikes and other electric devices. Our two speakers today are Mr. John Corn of Anne Arundel County Bicycle Advisory Commission and Corporal Dominic Cataldi of Anne Arundel County Anne Arundel County Police Department. So turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Hello,
Great.
everyone. This is Corporal Cataldi. I just wanted to come out first and say, unfortunately, I'm not feeling well today. I spoke with John Corn. He's going to do most of the talking for me. Thank you, John. I will be here to answer any agency-specific questions, though. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. It's great to be back with the BPAG. I recognize a few of you, but a lot of you are new. While I was never on the BPAC, I used to be a very regular attendee. I think Regina would attest to that. So glad to be back with you today. So this topic of e-bikes, it's a local issue, a regional issue, and a global issue. The widespread use of such a variety of electric powered devices, many of which are promoted as e-bikes, but many of which, according to Maryland statute and statute in most states, are not e-bicycles per the statutory definition. Many of them exceed the power and other speed and other feature components of a statutory definition of e-bike. So, and we see loads of youth, and I'm sure all of you do as well, on this wide range of devices. And so we felt like the first step was to do some education, both for parents of youth, because it's the parents who are buying many of these devices, but also just for the general public, to let them know what the various types of devices are, what the definitions are, and most importantly, what the rules and regulations are for where they're allowed to be used, how they're allowed to be used, and so forth. So Corporal Cataldi and I worked very closely together to develop the PSA, public service announcement, that you see on your screen right now. And so we chose these three categories to provide definitions for e-bicycles. And if you don't know, Maryland and most states have a three-class statutory definition of electric bicycle. They all require operable pedals. They all are required to have a maximum motor power of 750 watts. And then class 1, pedal assist only. You don't get power assist unless you're pedaling up to 20 miles an hour. Then the assist stops. Class 2 is pedal assist up to 20 miles an hour, but also has a throttle. So that means you can turn the throttle and power the bike without pedaling. And then class 3 is pedal assist only, but up to a maximum of 28 miles per hour. So that's sort of a high level summary of what meets the statutory definition of electric bicycle. And generally speaking, electric bicycles have the same rights, responsibilities, regulations as bicycles, generally speaking. So for use on the road, all the rules that apply to bicycles, they're allowed in Maryland to be used on roads with speeds of 50 miles per hour or less. You generally have to stay as far to the right as practicable. If there's a bike lane, you're generally required to use it, except under certain circumstances, and so on and so forth. Adhere to all traffic regulations. On trails, either paved or dirt or natural surface trails, those rules are generally governed by the local jurisdiction. So, for example, here in Anne Arundel County, the paved trail, some of you may know the B&A trail, the BWI trail, the new Broadneck Trail. By the way, my background is new bridge that just opened to nearly complete the Broadneck Trail, Sandy Point Park. Those types of trails are generally regulated by the local jurisdiction, and the rules vary. Currently, Anne Arundel County, for example, allows all three classes of e-bikes on the trails. Some counties restrict to just class 1. Maryland DNR is about to lock in a new regulation for e-bikes at Maryland state parks and Maryland state trails, which would restrict them to class 1 unless it's an adaptive device. They very wisely made an exception for allowing devices to have a throttle when it's an adaptive device to be used by somebody with disability or mobility impairment. So then we've got e-scooters, and there's a statutory definition of a low-speed electric scooter. Again, speed limit regulations and so forth. All e-scooters also are considered bicycles in Maryland statute. So generally speaking, same rights and responsibilities on the roads. But again, the regulation for trails for e-scooters varies by local jurisdiction. Now, the one thing I should have mentioned perhaps, and anything I miss, I know Meg is going to catch me on. So I know Meg will make sure I got everything right. And if I left anything out, she'll make sure to cover that. But e-bikes, for example, there is a restriction on age use on the road. Under 16 can't use e-bicycles on the roadway. Now comes e-motos. Now, e-moto is becoming a popular term nationally. It is not a statutory term, but e-moto is generally used to describe something that looks like an electric bicycle, but exceeds the statutory definition that I just went over. So a lot of the devices you see, they can go faster than 20 miles an hour on a throttle. Some of them don't have operable pedals. Some of them just have pegs, or they may have stationary pedals that are really just footrests, not operational pedals. Many of them have motors that exceed the 750 watt max statutory definition of an electric bicycle. So this general umbrella of e-moto covers, for example, electric moped, and moped is covered by statute in Maryland. Some of them that exceed the limits on mopeds are actually electric motorcycles or electric dirt bikes. So you have this whole collection of devices, many of which are marketed by the manufacturers and some by the sellers, whether online or otherwise, as quote unquote e-bikes. But again, statutorily speaking, they are not e-bikes. And so these e-motos, in virtually all cases, are not permitted on trails. And on the roadway, they typically require license, registration, and insurance. And so some of them, if you have a driver's license, you can, I think you're allowed to use a moped. If it's motorcycle, you may need a motorcycle license. But for these 13 and 14-year-olds that are running around on these powerful devices, they're not permitted on the roadway. They're not permitted on the trail. Technically, the only place they'd be permitted is on private property. And so they are a hazard. They're a hazard to the rider. They are a hazard to pedestrians and other trail users. And so the big push here is to educate the public. The one other thing I'll say, and then I'm going to stop and see if Corporal Cataldi has anything he wants to add, and then turn it over to Meg, is I personally feel that in Maryland, we have a pretty decent statutory framework for dealing with this. It's just that enforcement is really, really difficult. Police can't pursue. That creates its own hazards. On its trail rangers, it's hard to catch people flying by on these things. They don't have power to sight. I've talked to trail rangers who will pull a kid over and just have a talk with them, and sometimes that might modify behavior. But enforcement is really tricky. So I don't think there's a legal response to this safety concern. It's more one of education enforcement. There may be legal things we need to do because there's such a variety of electric hoverboards, segways. I mean, there's so many devices, electric skateboards. It could be that we need some regulatory fine tuning. So that maybe there's a bill in the future for Maryland, but I would caution against what New Jersey just did, which was an extreme overreaction to this problem. And they're putting regulation on everything so that even electric bicycles that meet the statutory definition, they just signed into law a couple days ago, requiring all of even statutory e-bikes to require license, registration, and insurance. That's just a over reaction in my view, and I think in the view of many. So let me stop there and see first, Dominic Cataldi, is there anything you want to add with your Godfather voice?
Yeah, John, thank you. We also have a PowerPoint version of this, which we are presenting to different groups throughout the county. So far, I've given 3 of the presentations, 2 of which to the PCRC, which is the Police Community Relations Council, and we've also done one at Severna Park Middle School. It seems to be pretty well received. We have good attendance, and we're happy to give this presentation to any group within the county who could benefit from it. I would also say that before, during, and after, the feedback that I've gotten, especially from parents or grandparents, has been, thank you for the information. We actually purchased something that was incorrect because we didn't know the difference. And that was kind of what we were trying to jump out ahead of this holiday season. But moving forward, we think that we have a good base platform to continue with. And I'm also working on like some old school trifold paper pamphlets as handouts for these presentations. But again, if this is something that you're looking for and you're interested in, or you have any questions for me, I can add my email in the chat so you can reach out to me for anything that you need.
So maybe let's see if there are any questions or comments. Otherwise, I'd say let's get Meg from MDOT, who is a great partner in all things, including this issue.
This is Chris with Howard County. Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
I guess it's an enforcement type question. So if somebody was riding a electric device that did not fall into the e-bike or e-scooter categories that were legal, let's say um, on the B&A trail in Anne Arundel County, if they were in an incident, if they were in a collision, the police had to review and investigate. Um, how would that be handled? Would they be handled like they're riding a vehicle, or if they're in a crosswalk and they get struck by a car on one of the crossings of the B&A trail, are they like any tips on how that might be handled?
Well, I can say
Dominic.
from the department's perspective, I've had several conversations with members of our traffic safety division, and if it is an unclassified version of one of these devices, it's really case by case. So there are several that do not meet the statutory definitions that John covered earlier, as however that depending on the power, the speed, and so on and so forth. Uh, our traffic safety section, again, until there's more clarity in the law to cover more devices, it's somewhat an officer discretion issue. But of the three major collisions that we've had that I'm aware of involving an e-device, it came down to the traffic safety section, and they handled all three of those differently based on all the other contributing factors to the collision.
And Dominic, were those on the road or were those on a trail? Because that's an important distinction that Chris is I think that Chris is making.
All three were on the roadway.
On the road, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's tricky on the trail when you're violating a rec and parks regulation, which is different from violating a law.
Yeah.
I think it gets tricky.
Yeah.
The one additional aspect of that, though, as a contributory negligence state, if they were struck by a motor vehicle and tried to claim any damages, they probably would not be granted anything, because it's contributory negligence to have a not road legal vehicle in that crossing. If it was in the crossing, maybe on the trail, but that's a whole other aspect of it.
Yes, so on our end, there are definitely some gaps in the law the way it is written right now. But I would say that I wouldn't necessarily either assign blame or innocence to uh, any person on a device simply because that device doesn't meet the statutory definition of one of the three that we've already spoken about. I think, again, it would have a lot to do with the contributing factors to the collision itself. And like to give for instance, if there were a situation where a rider was struck by a motor vehicle, and for all other intents and purposes, that motor vehicle was violating traffic law, I think just because that rider wasn't on a classified device, I don't think that that would negate the responsibility from the driver. I don't think that's necessarily what you meant, but I would say that, again, all contributor or all contributing factors being considered, I think it really is case by case for now.
Thank you.
But to Meg's point, I don't know, are you all familiar with the doctrine of contributory negligence? If if not, there are 4 states and plus the District of Columbia that utilizes doctrine of contributory negligence. It says if something bad happens, whether it's a road collision or somebody slips in a puddle in a store, any kind of thing dealing with negligence, and this is civil law, not criminal, although the two can certainly be connected. If the victim is found to be even 1% at fault, then the other person is off the hook for civil damages in a contributory negligence state like Maryland. All of the other states use some form of comparative negligence where a court would decide, let's say the victim is 10% at fault and the other person is 90% at fault, you could collect 90% damages. Here, this insane doctrine of contributory negligence, and I've revealed my personal view on it, 1% at fault and the other guy's off the hook. And so I think to Meg's point, if you were riding an e-moto on the trail and you hit a pedestrian, the fact that you were violating a regulation would say, or if you got hit in a roadway rather, or a crosswalk, you're breaking a law, you'd be somewhat at fault. So I think you're right, Meg, that contributory negligence would kick in.
Yeah, and I may agree with that from a civil perspective.
Civil side.
Yeah,
right.
I can tell you that there have been many situations in my not only personal career, but also in the research that it took prior to this release where I was left scratching my head until I read the opinion either by the judge that issued the opinion afterwards. And again, it is really not only case by case, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, and so on and so forth. In fact, when I give the presentation, I preface everything by saying so much of this comes down to common sense. Don't get caught up in the ins and outs of the law. It's like, what makes the most sense in this situation? Then apply the information I'm about to give you to whatever scenario you're about to run through your head. Because a lot of people, they just give me endless examples of what would happen if this, what would happen if that. And I was like, the discretion and the contributory factors lend themselves to common sense, but you have to think from that perspective first.
It's a good perspective.
Meg, you want to go?
Sure. I will share my screen since I'll share about kind of our upcoming plans at MDOT, but I did not know that New Jersey law was officially signed 2 days ago. That I just did some Googling, and the one that John spoke about, last week at the Transportation Research Board, TRB annual meeting, people from New Jersey were hoping it wasn't going to be signed. And John's right that it's a knee-jerk reaction that's making really sweeping regulations for any e-bike riding. You have to have a license, you have to have insurance, and it's going to be really prohibitive. And the buzz and the chatter at TRB was how much of that came down to people not knowing enough about these devices. So I really applaud Bike AAA and Anne Arundel County for getting out there with this information. Getting through all the approvals here has taken some time, but we are soon going to have a similar information sheet from the state that categorizes all of the different micromobility. But we're really going to need everyone's help getting the information out there so we don't end up in a similar situation to New Jersey, where because we don't make things clear, we end up with a good intent to make things safer. We can't negate that it was a reaction to tragedies, and the intent of their laws to make things safer, but it's going to have wide sweeping effects that I don't think were intended. So, but anyways, what we're doing here at MDOT in regards to micromobility comes out of our 2050 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. It was the first time we'd mentioned micromobility in any of our official plans. And so it mentions micromobility and dockless vehicles. And I think it's important to just baseline knowledge, think about these in 2 different categories, personally owned vehicles and then the shared micromobility fleets. We really saw the fleets first when these e-scooters dropped everywhere. And then since then, we've seen the huge uptick in personally owned vehicles. And as much as sometimes shared fleets cause some issues with ADA accessibility. At the same time, these fleets we know are all legal vehicles. We know they're all required to be maintained, and there are some advantages to having shared fleets that meet legal definitions as opposed to these personally owned micromobility vehicles. That yes, there are many good actors, riding legal e-bikes, riding legal e-scooters, and then there's this issue with these new vehicles coming down the road, quite literally, that somebody might not even know isn't legal. So they're not trying to break the law. They simply don't know, and they're simply seeing all of the options online. But that is where we're seeing a lot of the real issues come from, are these personally owned micromobility vehicles that don't quite meet the definition of what a legal micromobility vehicle is. So our 2050 bike ped plan kind of came up with some recommendations for both, for shared fleets, working with the cities, towns, and counties that have fleets. I owe this working group some stuff right now. For both of them, developing safety guidance, and then parking and design guidelines. And then for personally owned, eventually aspiring to an e-bike rebate program, which Baltimore City piloted last year. So props to them. So far, we did launch a micromobility webpage, Micromobility in Maryland, which kind of explains a little bit of this and about how this has got to be a collaborative effort between the state and local jurisdictions. At the state, yes, we are involved with defining the vehicles and the legal roads, rules of the road. We can set standards for roadway designs and develop information, one-pagers and whatnot. But local jurisdictions are always going to be the one that permit the shared fleets. They set their own standards for local roads. And it's oftentimes going to be people on the ground, like Corporal Cataldi, who are going to be disseminating that information and enforcing. That doesn't always come from the state level, but we do want to be a partner with providing the accurate information to people on the ground. So with all of that in mind, our work coming very soon is this one-pager, very, very similar to Bike AAA's, that details a lot about what micromobility is and the legal definitions in the Maryland Code. Then we're working on a model permit and toolkits for jurisdictions with shared fleets. This is where I owe Tyler and folks some stuff. And then we're kicking off next month point of sale and safety education. And so this applies to personally owned vehicles, which we're talking about today, and rider behavior. We're looking to get information to bike shops and retailers about fire safety and maintenance, as well as outreach about rider behavior, things that can be used on social media, things that can be used by local jurisdictions. So to dive into each of those, my one-pager, I've got all of the legal sign-offs now. I've got all of the, almost all of the sign-offs to release this, but we're intending to distribute this to local partners, law enforcement, and advocates. It covers what is micromobility, who rides, basic requirements, where you can ride, maintaining e-micromobility and battery safety in brief. A few lines that say, if you take off your speed governor, it's not road legal anymore. And a little bit about fire safety around batteries. And then on the right here, these are the definitions of different types of micromobility in the Maryland Code and the transportation article. So all of these are coming with links, and this is what a lot of our law enforcement partners have really wanted in one place. How can I tell the difference between an e-bike and a moped being what, and the mini bikes down here are what John and many people are referring to as the e-motos. And the mini bikes and dirt bikes, illegal on our roadways. This is state roadways, but it's most local roadways as well. Mopeds, they can be ridden on roadways, but they need a title, insurance, and a license to operate. So some of the e-bikes that can be operated by pedals uh, might fall under this, or they might fall under, the mini bike or the dirt bike definition. The micromobility working group for shared micromobility was meeting pretty consistently, and then we fell off a little bit there. Is looking to develop a micromobility permit, a model permit. We discussed some personally owned vehicles. It definitely informed our task. And then we're working with those jurisdictions to explore funding opportunities for shared fleets. And then our safety project will be through the MVA Pedestrian and Bicycle Emphasis Area Team, PBEAT. At the next meeting on February 2nd, we're going to make a call for interested members of a micromobility safety group. At the February 2nd meeting, we'll have our first review of crash data from Washington College. We now have 2 years of crash data that actually specifies e-micromobility. There's an update to our reporting systems, the ACRE systems that law enforcement uses after crashes. And so, yeah, we now have 2 full years of data about what crashes are occurring with micromobility. And we've looked at a couple of different ways to analyze it. So we're going to present that and see what the group thinks if we're analyzing the right things. Our task will develop some safety and maintenance materials and then a plan to disseminate this to local partners, bicycle retailers, and owners. The MVA is our partner for this since they are the ones who generally lead crash analysis. And as far as vehicle regulations, they've done outreach in the past to all motor vehicle retailers. And so they're excited to see how, we can also do this for bicycle retailers and repair shops as well to make sure everybody knows about the vehicles that they're starting to see. So we anticipate meeting once a month moving forward, but again, kicking that off February 2nd at the PBEAT. So.
Meg, can I just chime in real quick?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, just as a reminder, the PB, we are focused on the crashes with motor vehicles. So I know that there's a big concern about crashes amongst other mobility users, other pedestrians on trails and stuff, but our focus and data that we have is going to come from the crash reports from the police department, and we're really focusing on that. But I feel that education, even in and around motor vehicles, will really help with that to go and equate to trails.
Oh, yeah. Certainly.
Thanks.
And I think still it is crashes involving motor vehicles, but we can learn a lot about who's involved with crashes, who's riding vehicles, and some of those behaviors. There's things that, on the ACRES report about, is there protective gear? What were the conditions? What's the time of day? A lot of interesting details. So. Other questions, comments? I see people want the micromobility table. Yes, it is a front and it is a back. It's a one pager so that it's not too much information. That again, I'm waiting for the final sign off, and then yes, everybody will have the PDF, including all of the links that go directly to the transportation articles.
All right. Thank you, Meg. Thank you, John, and thank you, Corporal Cataldi, for your presentation. We'll go ahead and move on to our next item on the agenda, which will be a presentation from MDOT SHA Grants Program Overview by Mr. David Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. My name is David Thomas. I work for MDOT TSO in the Office of Active Transportation and Micromobility, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of MDOT grant opportunities. Every year, MDOT hosts the Grants Roadshow. We go out in January or February to local jurisdictions to provide an update on some of these grant programs. Some of you might have attended our January 12th event, so this may be a little bit of a repeat, but we definitely wanted to spread the word of some of our MDOT grant opportunities. To start off, we'll get into federal infrastructure grants. The IIJA Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, actually created a unprecedented opportunity for grants in Maryland, and they created discretionary grants. Some of these grants are listed on the screen: the Safe Streets and Roads for All, the BUILD program, which was also previously known as Tiger or RAISE, and then the BIT program. This is the last year of IIJA funding, so it's very important that if you guys are interested in applying or have a project that may be eligible for these grants, that we would strongly encourage you apply. Safe Streets for All is really regards the comprehensive development of a safety action plan, and we expect that grant cycle to open spring 2026. The BUILD grant is more related to bike ped, and it supports a wide variety of multimodal surface transportation projects. That application cycle is actually open now and due February 24th. And then the Bridge Investment Program is related to national bridges, and we're expecting that application cycle to open in the spring of 2026. Sean Winkler, the Senior Policy Advisor at TSO, is really our main point of contact for discretionary grants. We also have Christy Bernal, and she is housed at SHA for any specific questions. I want to point out the MDOT Federal Discretionary Grants newsletter that's at the top of this slide. You guys will be getting these slides and can click these links, but please sign up for that. That will give you some information, not only just on discretionary grants, but also any MDOT related grants. Moving on, I want to touch a little bit on SHA grant programs. Two major ones for this group would be the Transportation Alternatives Program and the Recreational Trails. As you guys are aware, funding is allocated for these programs through the major metropolitan organizations. That includes BMC, TPB, and WMAPCO. And Transportation Alternatives Programs really supports active transportation. So this is shared use paths, bike paths, accessibility upgrades, and so forth. One thing that IIJA did was codify safe routes to school as a eligible TAP category. And so with that, MDOT has promoted safe routes to school, both infrastructure and non-infrastructure projects. Specifically, some of you on this call are aware that MDOT promoted the Safe Routes to School Coordinator Pilot Program this past year. And so we have 4 jurisdictions receiving funding for hiring a Safe Routes to School coordinator. And associated with that, MDOT is soon going to release the Safe Routes to School Coordinator Toolkit, which is a comprehensive guide that will detail Safe Routes to School coordinators in Maryland. I also want to touch on the Recreational Trails Program. That is also a very well-known program across the state of Maryland. That program is more geared towards recreational-based projects, and specifically caters to more natural surface trails. So that doesn't necessarily mean hard surface trails are not eligible, but it does cater more to natural surface trails. Oops. Some pictures here. On the left-hand side, we have the Shady Grove Metro Access. This was a TAP project where we installed accessibility upgrades. And then on the right, we have the Indian Head Boardwalk at the town of Indian Head. This project was actually a TAP project, but a project like this would qualify for recreational trails. So that is something to keep in mind. On this slide, we produced a couple additional resources for you guys. Please navigate to these links with any additional information. We have the Transportation Alternatives website, the Recreational Trails website. We have the guidance for local public agency and subrecipient of federal funds. This is a manual. And then we have a federal grants resource webpage. For Transportation Alternatives and Recreational Trails, that is the GPMD division in SHA. And the point of contact for those programs are Annika Kachel and Brittany Howe. Moving on to the Maryland Department of Transportation Motor Vehicle Highway Safety Office grants. These grants are dedicated to saving lives and preventing injuries, reducing motor vehicle crashes throughout the administration of comprehensive network of traffic safety programs. MHSO safety grants are highly competitive traffic safety grants. They're data-driven. They're focused on behavioral changes. And it's a reimbursable program, and there's no match requirement. On the right-hand side here, you could see the diagram. They focus on behavioral changes and the 3 E's listed highlighted: enforcement, education, and emergency medical services. Luckily, Cynthia Spriggs is on the call today, so she can answer any specific questions at the end of this webinar. One thing to take note here, the deadline is February 27th for these grants, so it is open now. And as I said, Cynthia is one of our program managers for this, and she'll be able to answer any specific questions offline. So next is the MDOT Bikeways Network Program. This is a program well known, and it's a state program, so different than some of the programs that I provided an overview before. This is a state grant. So the Kim Lanphier Bikeways Network Program mission is to support planning, design, construction, and bicycle transportation projects. Since being established in 2011, $42 million has been awarded to 256 projects. As I mentioned, this is a state-funded source, so comparing them to some of the federal grants, you may be able to get a project through the state process a little bit quicker than the federal process. The program was renamed after bicycle advocate Kim Lanphier in 2020. One thing I want to note with this program is that the Bikeways program can be a match towards the TAP program. So basically what that would do is reduce the local match required for a project. So please keep that in mind when you're applying. And also when you're applying, make sure that you note in the application that you've applied for multiple different grant programs. That way we can coordinate on the back end and pick the right grant for you. Some of the different updates for the Bikeways Network program is that the Bikeways grant can now fund complete street treatments and state of good repair maintenance activities, which are both pictured here. So please keep that in mind as potential project ideas. This year, the Maryland Department of Transportation will award approximately $1 to $2 million to local jurisdictions for FY27 grant cycle. Bikeway applications will be accepted for 6 weeks and is to be determined between April and May 2026. And then the awards will be announced fall 2026. I failed to mention in the TAP slides that the TAP application window and recreational trails will probably mimic the bikeways and will probably be held between April and May 2026. So if you're considering applying, please send an email to mdbikeways@mdot.maryland.gov. That way you can provide some intent when applying and we can help you through the application process. Moving on to the MDOT Urban Tree Program. This grant program was established in 2021, required by Maryland law in response to loss of trees from the Purple Line construction. So the MDOT Urban Tree Grant Program provides funding to communities that have lost trees as a result of transportation facility projects. They will provide up to $5,000 available for tree planting projects. And tree planting under this program are eligible to count towards the Maryland 5 Million Tree Initiative. MDOT has partnered with the Maryland Forest Service to administer this grant, and there are 2 award cycles annually. Unfortunately, we've missed the January 15th deadline that has passed, but there'll be another cycle open with the deadline of July 5th for the fall plantings. So please visit the Urban Tree Program website to get a little bit more information. And you can also reach out to Nick Kurtz or Allison Ghost to get some more information. On the left here is a planting at Hampden Elementary Middle School in Baltimore City, as they were awarded tree funds. Now I'm going to move on to the Transit-Oriented Development and Revolving Loan Fund. This was launched in 2025 to support local jurisdictions and their development partners in transit-oriented development. The key here is that any project has to be identified as a state designated Listed here, I have some eligible projects, but it must directly serve a state designated TOD area. TOD fund will fund up to one project per TOD area. And if you have multiple TOD areas, you need to submit different separate TOD applications. Any questions for this, please reach out to todprogram@mdot.maryland.gov and then subscribe for future program updates at this link. Again, you'll receive these slides and you can utilize these links. And then lastly, I want to touch on some technical resources, items that can help lead to a more successful grant project. We want to make sure as an applicant submits an application that they're telling the full story. It's very important as a reviewer that we understand the need of the project, the purpose of the project, and the goal. One way that you can articulate the need is to use OMOC and get data out of OMOC for this purpose. So One Maryland, One Centerline, also known as OMOC, is a collaborative effort between federal, state, and local entities that provides a seamless statewide roadway data set. It is housed at SHA, and some of the benefits of OMOC are authoritative data, collaborative maintenance, timely updates, optimized data, and centralized data access. Currently at MDOT-TSO in the Office of Active Transportation and Micromobility, we're doing outreach to local jurisdictions to work specifically on sidewalk data. This effort provides training to local jurisdictions to help us populate sidewalk data across the state. So if you haven't heard from us already, you'll hear from us soon for that training and for us to engage in that effort. So again, if you have any questions about OMOC, please feel free to reach out to me or Meg Young. We can work with you on that, and we will be reaching out for that training. And then lastly, I just ask you guys to join us on the road. We're going to be going on the road in March to conduct road shows in Cambridge, Waldorf, Bel Air, and Williamsport, Maryland. The dates are listed here, and the RSVP can be the QR code here. You can also go to the MDOT Grants Roadshow website, which will guide you around to some of the different dates, the additional information, the full PowerPoint, and the RSVP. That's all I had.
All right, thank you very much, David. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah. Quick question. Dan, you may not know the answer to this, but is there a do we know if the Safe Streets for All program is going to be funded to the same amount that it has been?
So we know of the funding amount for this coming year, and I can work on getting that information and get back to you. But for future years, that is up in the air. At this point, since this is the last year of IIJA, it's unclear what grants, specifically discretionary grants, will look like in the future. And so that's sort of unknown at this time.
What I thought, what I figured. Thanks.
Yep.
If there's no other questions, then we'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation about vulnerable road users. And our speaker will be Achuet Newpain. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, and I apologize if I didn't.
Yep. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah.
There. You see my screen, right?
Someone you wanted to share? Okay. Yep, looks good. We can see it.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Achuet Newpain. I'm a multimodal team leader at Maryland Department of Transportation, SHA's Office of Traffic and Safety. And I'm a project manager for the Maryland's 2025 VRE safety assessment. At this point, we'll be sharing the overview of the VRE safety assessment, what it is, and what's the process behind it, and then the progress we've made so far. The purpose of the VRE assessment is required under the bipartisan infrastructure law. So identifies where the people walking, biking, or using mobility devices. Those are vulnerable road users, or we can say the VRU in short form. Those faces the highest risk in the roadways. VRU face higher risk of serious injury or death on our roadways. For Maryland, the assessment evaluates the current VRU safety and recommends the strategies to improve it. The federal guidance requires that the VRU safety assessment to be updated alongside with the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, SHSP, which runs over 5-year cycle. We are updating it now for 2025 cycle, which will be 2026 to 2030. Although the initial assessment, this VRE assessment was completed 2 years ago in 2023, this update aligns with the SHSP cycle. So we updated within these 2 years, after 2 years, because to align with the SHSP. And so going forward, the VRE safety assessment will be updated every 5 years with the SHSP. As you know, Maryland is a Vision Zero state and committed to eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injury by 2030. The VRE safety assessment supports the ongoing MDOT initiatives towards that goal. So one key initiative is Complete Streets, implemented statewide to prioritize safe multimodal options, which includes the people walking and biking or using other mobility devices through all phases of the project development. The assessment also aligns with the series about the safety initiative, which strengthened the MDOT's commitment to reducing fatalities on Maryland roadways. Talking about the methodology, the process begins with the data collection from the several MDOT offices to understand existing condition. From that, we identified areas of need, and then we narrowed down to the priority high-risk area statewide. To complement the data, we gathered public feedback through a survey highlighting where the people want safer space for walking, biking, and rolling. So we had we held a total of 5 stakeholder meetings across the state to get input from all the people on those high-risk areas. Together, these steps inform Maryland 2025 update of the VRE safety assessment. So to identify the areas of need, we analyzed the crash number and severity along the public survey input, community factors, short trip opportunity areas, also known as STOAs. Within these areas of need, we conducted separate prioritization analysis to identify candidate roadways for safety improvements. More on that later. So this methodology follows the previous assessment we did in PSAP, if you have heard that, with the updated public input and crash data. Using this data, we identified 5 geographic areas within the SHA district, highest overlap within each SHA district. We conducted a online public survey from December through January, inviting input on the roadway facilities with the safety concern and suggested improvements. So from those we get the public comments, and those public comments from the survey were used to help identify areas of need. This map you can see, which shows the density of comments across the SHA districts. And other factor was community factors. The demographics were another key factor in defining the areas of need. So we scored Maryland census tract and on multiple demographic measures with points for the factors above the statewide average. So higher scoring areas tend to rely more on people walking, biking, and transit. So investing in safe infrastructure here helps connect the residents to the opportunity safely. Other factor was non-fatal, non-motorist crash density. So crash location is another key factor in defining areas of need. So this map shows the density of non-fatal, non-serious crashes in Maryland over the last 5 years. As expected, higher densities tend to occur in more populated areas. Another factor is the serious and fatal crash density. So this map shows the serious and fatal bike crashes, and it's like a previous map, but you can see that the rural and suburban areas are more likely to appear here than they did when looked only the non-fatal and non-serious crashes. So another factor we consider in identifying the areas of need was Maryland Department of Transportation short trip opportunity areas, STOAs. These are places where the people have high potential to replace short driving trips with the walking or biking, given the safe conditions. The factor MDOT used to define STOAs include the employment and population densities, school coverage, transit access, and the number of zero-car households. So finally, we layered all these data sets to identify areas of need. As you can see in the map, which is the result of the areas of need. And you can see the blue bubbles, those are the areas of need from our previous analysis in 2023. And the pink one are the areas of need we identified in 2025. So there's a little bit shift in the areas of need. So for the high risk areas, we use the prioritization analysis to score all SHL and local roadways within each areas of need based on the factors shown here. The next, we focused on the highest scoring segments. This highlights only the top segments by our methodology. So it doesn't capture every roadways with a VRE safety risk. And other corridors may be prioritized through the state, district, county, or local programs, which is not covered by the VREs. We held 5 virtual consultation meetings across Maryland with a range of stakeholders, counties, cities, MPOs, different advocacy groups, towns, and VR representatives. The goal was to hear their safety concerns and gather input on what type of improvements could be the best solution for those corridors. On the screen, you can see the survey's initial landing page. We did the online survey. So with all the corridors, high risk identified high risk corridors in the map, so they can go there and then add their input. for the specific corridors. So participants use the map to give their feedback for this on their specific corridors, focusing on person safety, cyclist safety, and the improvement they would like to see. So it was almost the same time we did the consultation meetings, 5 consultation meetings in the different region, and also the online survey at that time to gather all the feedback for the safety concerns on these corridors. As you can see, the map for SHA District 4, which includes Baltimore and Harford County, we have 28 corridors identified in District 4, for both Baltimore and Harford County. Most of these corridors are clustered closer to the city, and with some notable exceptions. We have grouped the corridors on the subsequent slide geographically roughly. So we'll starting with the Harford County and working our way around the Baltimore to the west to east. And Baltimore City, we have identified 20 corridors. So these are just the numbering segment here are just a group roughly from west to the east. And SHA District 5, which is Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charleston, St. Mary's counties. Within those, we identified 25 corridors in District 5 across 3 counties. So majority of the corridors closer to the northern side of North Anne Arundel County. So 12 out of 25 in District 5, which is in Anne Arundel County. But we do not have several areas identified in Charles and St. Mary's counties as well. So we grouped the corridors subsequent slide roughly geographically. So SHA District 7, which includes Hartford, Carroll, and Frederick counties, we identified 17 corridors in District 7 across 3 counties, with a total 8 corridors in Howard County and 3 in Carroll County. SHA District 6, which includes Washington, Allegheny, and Tarrant County, we identified 8 corridors identified as high-risk corridors in District 6. And District 1, we identified 12 corridors, which is Dorchester, Worcester, Wicomico, and Somerset counties. District 2, Cecil, Kent, Quincy, Caroline, and Talbot counties identified 13 total high-risk corridors across District 2. And District 3, which includes Prince George and Montgomery County, we identified 20 corridors in District 3 across these 2 counties. So the next step was to meet the federal requirement. We need to finish and publish the VR safety assessment as a part of Maryland's next strategic highway safety plan by the end of 2025. But unfortunately, there was some delay getting concurrence from the FHWS. I believe it will be published soon. So the the different steps uh, we have gone through is we collected all the stakeholders' input through the consultation meetings and online surveys. We summarize all those stakeholders' feedback, um, which included in our final report. We prepared the final report and already submitted to the governor's office for review and approval. And also, I believe we have submitted to the federal highway administration for their concurrence. So I hope it will be published as an appendix to the strategic highway safety plan. It was planned to publish by the end of 2025. So hopefully it will be published soon. So thank you. That's an overview of PR safety assessment. If you have any question, please.
All right, thank you very much. If we don't have any other questions regarding vulnerable road users, we'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation with Regional Active Transportation Count Program by Charlene Mingus.
Let me get that up. Okay, thank you for having me today. I'm going to talk about the Regional Active Transportation Count Program as we're coming up on a new season of potential counts. So the Regional Account Program is a project-specific bike, ped, and e-scooter account program conducted across the Baltimore region. So it supports before and after evaluation, safety analysis, long-term monitoring, and grants as well, grant applications. And it provides consistent and aligned data for local and regional decision-making. Why this matters for BPAG and our local jurisdictions is it helps justify bike and ped projects using local data, strengthens grant applications by documenting existing demand and project impacts. So if you're applying for a grant for shared use path, you wouldn't have data because it's not built yet, but you could use an example of another shared use path in your jurisdiction to help give you those numbers. It also supports safety analysis by improving understanding of exposure. So we know how many people are actually biking and walking in an area when there are crash incidents. It also creates consistent data across jurisdictions. So that allows for some regional comparison as well. So the count equipment that we've used from the beginning is the Scout video units, model vision cameras. So these are non-intrusive cameras that are on a pole where the camera can be raised up and it can be mounted to a street light or other kind of pole. There's some restrictions on where they can go, and then they're always mounted within the public right of way, avoiding private property. No lane closures or disruptions to traffic are needed, so it's pretty minimal impact for the installation, temporary installation. So with data quality and limitations, there are some limitations using a video unit as it's based on, being able to see things. So sometimes when the weather's bad, if it's raining or if the lighting conditions at night are too dark, then that can affect visibility and would potentially make it not possible to count within those time periods. So the count duration is also limited to up to 7 days. So you could do 1, 2, 3, 7-day counts. And all data is reviewed and spot checked for accuracy as well. So common count types. One of them is called a screen line. So you see the red line here on the screen. This is basically just counting how many people are going in direction 1. You kind of take a line and pretend line and count how many people are crossing that line going in one direction and how many people are crossing that line going in the other direction. So that gives you some good volume counts. Another common count type is turning movement. So those are usually on road where you could count people biking or using scooters and how many of them are at an intersection are going straight or turning right or left. I've also seen in some cases where projects have used it for sidewalk turning movements, but we don't have an example in the region yet for that. Other common counting types are marked and unmarked mid-block crosswalks and intersection crosswalks. So when say unmarked, that would be, maybe somebody's crossing mid-block when there isn't a facility there, and that can give you an idea of potential demand. And then the intersection crosswalk, this is just a 3-leg one, but obviously it'd be up to 4 legs for the crossing typically. So an example you guys have seen before is the Montgomery Road and Steep Ridge Drive in Howard County. They had new sidewalks installed on both sides of Montgomery Road, the main road here, and a new mid-block crosswalk with a refuge island on Montgomery Road. And to the south is a neighborhood, and then to the north directly is a middle school and elementary school. So we got some really strong numbers because there's a fair amount of demand in the area. Showed some of the key takeaways, as you can see here, is increased pedestrian activity after the installation, and then clear use of the new mid-block crosswalk and refuge islands. And then you can see right here on this chart, different weekday versus weekend patterns. So your weekday is just a lot higher than your weekend, which makes sense since, it seems, well, we could assume that it's probably being used by the school kids traveling to school. And you can also see more detailed data that's hourly to see if they're arriving closer to school start and stop times to kind of get more insights into that. And then this chart here gives you the difference between weekday and weekend averages a little bit more clearly. So these are really effective visuals to help share this information with decision makers or the public to help kind of show the impacts of infrastructure improvements. So how you can request a count, you can submit a count to my email at cmingus@baltometro.org. Multiple submissions are allowed. And once we receive those, we'll review the information you give us and then reach out if further details are needed. So more details better, but we're always happy to follow up with you all. So for the spring 2025 counts, we ask that you guys start submitting count locations now until March. That gives us time to look at them and kind of talk with you to get more details and submit them to the consultant to get quotes, etc., and approval from BNC leadership. And then that would happen in April. And then counts would be conducted in May and June. So we want to stay within like the warmer weather and then within the school period. So before school's let out for the summer. So once those counts are done, then the consultants have to process the data. They submit that to BMC, and we do a QC quality check to make sure there's not any obvious issues with the data, and do some analysis, and then share that with you all. So next steps would be if BPAG members could identify candidate locations in your jurisdictions and coordinate internally to see what priorities you all have. And then submitting requests from now until March for spring counts. And then if you wanted to look ahead into the fall, just submitting counts by August for the fall counts, which would happen in September and October. So that's all. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Charlene. Hey,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Charlene. Question about the data. Is it only shared with the jurisdictions that request it, or are you allowed to share it out more widely?
So currently we're just sharing it with the jurisdictions that requested it, but if we have other requests, I'm sure we could share that out as well, but we don't have it publicly available for download at this point. But we'd be happy to share that with the state, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to update our whole traffic monitoring system to have active transportation counts. So any more counts we can get in the short term is great. And then, hopefully we'll have
Definitely.
counters.
Yeah, we'd love to support you. I'm a big proponent of trying to get better data at the state and then the national level to help give more insight into bicycle and pedestrian projects. So one thing I didn't highlight as much is if jurisdictions are looking at installing long-term counters, so counters that are going to be, in the ground or mounted, like with the
Eco counter.
Yep.
Example. Yep.
An example is eco counter. Sometimes it's a big investment to kind of put these things out and install them for long term. So the short term counts can be used in advance to kind of help you select potential locations. So that's another example of how this count program could be of assistance. We definitely like to see more, as many short term counts as we can, but those long term counts are where you get some really great quality data over the long term. So
Exactly. Oh, John is saying how much they love Eco Counter in Baltimore City. Yep. And the other John
John,
had a
we may
question.
have you do a presentation to give us an update on how the Baltimore City program is, because I think the last time was 2 years ago, and I know you've had a lot of advancements since then.
Of course.
Were there any other questions?
Hi, Charlene, John Corn. I just wondered, in addition to the hardware camera-based counters, have we explored software that can use video feeds from all the cameras that are all over the place, often at intersections and crossings and so forth? I mean, that might help Meg and all the jurisdictions as well with sort of broader based counting.
So the video equipment, the consultant that we work with right now that we have a contract with, they actually have a human counting, so they don't use kind of the algorithm based one, but I know there are other consultants who do. I'm not aware of any programs that have used existing video feeds.
Yeah.
I know there could be challenging to get access to that data for privacy kind of issues, but I don't know, Meg, if you've heard anything or anybody else. Always interested in learning about new counting technology for sure.
Yeah, I haven't dug into that, but usually any cameras that we have up, it's pretty strictly outlined what we can use it for. So we would have to change um, terms for any cameras and probably notify people for using it for anything else. So it'd be easier said than done.
Yep. But John, yeah, I'll look into that too and see if there are any examples. It's a great.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
All right. Seeing as there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and move into our last presentation about Bike to Work Week 2026 by Lillian Bunton.
Hello. Am I sharing my screen?
Yep.
I'm not seeing it.
Yet? Anything?
Nope.
It worked just mere moments ago.
No.
You want to invite me again?
I think you should, it's enabled, so you should be able to share
Let's try that.
presentation just in case.
Right. I will try dragging the PDF over.
Okay, and if not, then I can share it for you. You could just tell me when to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, so I can go ahead and share. Get that up. Okay. Type this. Okay,
You ready?
ready.
Okay. I'm Lillian Bunton. Luisa Glasnova is unable to join you. She has been quite ill with whatever's going around, so I'm hoping to not embarrass her with this one. I'm gonna tell you just the basics of what we're doing for Bike to Work Day. We had a kickoff meeting December 11th. We had 15 attendees discussing the prior year and then best practices for the 2026 planning. The primary topic was, as always, review of sponsorship, and we have materials that we distributed and additional planning. Next slide. It's a list of the team. I'm Lillian right there. You can contact the team on a central email if you have any questions. I'm sure you've gotten this contact information before, the bike to work at Baltimore Metro. Using the group email helps ensure that if somebody's out, other people see it and we can take care of any requests from either our partners or the public. Next slide, we've got a few shots of last year's events, which was a pretty fun time. It was the same combined virtual and live event schedule as we've had since we added the virtual during the pandemic. I was looking at this. I did not put this presentation together, but I was excited to see there are 5 different years T-shirts in this collage. So that kind of cracked me up to see some of our history there. One of the main things that we spend our sponsorship money on, aside from the T-shirts, is also media. So the next slide, you can see in 2025, we did digital advertising. The paid advertising schedule always depends upon how much money we've raised. So we had a robust digital and social media package, and digital allows us to reach the entire region, whereas various other print and radio is so expensive we really can't reach everyone. So we're pretty happy with being able to use those outlets. So next. Here's a little snapshot of last year's registration. You can see in the registration over time, we've held steady with registrations this year to last year. Registrations during the final week in 2025, and that's a week when we usually get like between 10 and 25% of our registrations because people put it off until the last week. They were way down because there were just weather forecasts like it was going to be Armageddon. So that really slowed our registration. And indeed, they were correct. There were rainstorms all week, and there was very heavy fog on Bike to Work Day. So some of our riders stayed home, but our ridership was still pretty steady. So I think without the weather, we would have had a nice increase. So next slide. As the event summary, as in prior years, we had live pit stops throughout the region, and this breaks it down. Baltimore always shows off. They had 16. That includes both bike shop, both live pit stops and any happy hour or coffee hour or training that various jurisdictions do. We had 18 bike shop pickup shops where people could ride on their own and pick up their swag. And our sponsorships held. We had 10 sponsors that gave us cash, and we had an in-kind sponsor. Now, if anybody in the group has any suggestions on a pit stop or a pickup location, you guys are a little more familiar with your geography. If there's a little dead area that you are aware of that we don't have anywhere for people to pick up a shirt, just please let us know at the Bike to Work email. The next one. Shirts will again be performance fabric as they have been for the past few years. We're featuring the same logo again this year. And the big reveal, next one. Ta-da! The shirt is a light mint green. It's got some hunter green and sort of a vibrant blue, almost not quite a reflex blue. If you're a color nerd along the bottom, if you're sharing this presentation with people, there are the PMS colors. I know that monitors are going to make them look different to everyone, but yeah, it's like a mint chocolate chip green. So next. Talking about the planning again, next. All right, so the 26th schedule, I'm sure all of you are aware that Bike Week is May 11th to the 17th, and Bike to Work Day is on that Friday. Some of our partners are doing their pit stops on Thursday because so many people with telework are taking Friday off, so they're hoping to get a little wider participation by switching the day. Some of our people, some of our jurisdictions don't have enough people to staff everything on a Friday, so they spread it out so they can personally be available. Registration opens April 1st. We are getting ready to send out save the date notifications, and flyers are ready. We'll be starting appearances actually Friday. I'll be tabling in Baltimore County, and we'll start trying to accompany people at any outreach they have. So if you guys are going somewhere within the region, we'd be happy to send somebody with materials and signage for promoting Bike to Work. Sponsorship deadlines. Deadline is February 27th. That is a hard deadline for the t-shirt because we have to get them printed in advance, but we will take anyone's money at any time if they have it. So feel free to send anybody's information our way. We would like to get all of the pit stops finalized by March 2nd. I know we do always have some people that squeak in under the deadline, but in order to get materials and t-shirts ready, we need to have people in advance so we can order the materials we need. So next slide. Speaking of sponsorship, we have 4 levels of sponsorship. We changed it a little bit this year from last year. We still have the $500. Our goal for fundraising this year is $22,000 to cover the shirts and advertising. If we get more, that usually goes towards advertising. We just spend a little bit on prizes if we don't have enough in-kind donations, and if anyone knows someone that would like to, donate a bicycle or equipment or, I don't know, a weekend in Aruba, we would be more than happy to put their name on everything. So you can see the spending is the grand prize along with the t-shirts and swag and the advertising. So again, if you know any sponsors, let us know. Next. Oh, that is all. To repeat, we are at bike to work marylandmd.com. If you want to check out the website, it is pretty much a placeholder right now. April 1st, registration will open, and we hope you will all get on there right away and get it going. And that would be it. Or is there anything else I can do for you?
Lillian, can I ask with the t-shirts, are we going with the tech t-shirts or are we going cotton this year?
It's tech. What do you prefer? This is always a controversy.
I know it is. I just asked partially for that reason to fuel the flames. I like cotton.
I do too.
No.
No matter what we have, there are always very vocal people in opposition. So I think we get a lot more positive feedback on the tech. Unfortunately, you and I are going to have to suffer through it.
Tyler agrees with this too in the chat, but oh well.
I did try last year. I tried to buy a few cotton, mix them in there with the same print, but the machines, it would be a whole different order and a little too expensive because I think it would be nice to offer. But yeah, that was a little too pricey.
See, I'm getting the debate going in the chat, but I was just poking fun at the long going.
It is hilarious how very staunch some people's support can be.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll go ahead and move on to the last part of the meeting, which is the roundtable discussion. If anybody has any updates, I'll just go ahead and call out each area by its name alphabetically, and we'll start with the city of Annapolis.
Thank you. I'll add what I'm aware of, and I see Will is here as well. He can follow up. So we did wrap up interviews for our Safe Streets for All Mobility Action Plan this week, or last week, I should say, which is exciting. So we're getting closer to selecting a team to work with us on that. So I'm anticipating that'll start March or so, hopefully, and that'll be an 18-month process. we're also getting closer on our West East Express Trail breaking ground. Hopefully this spring. We're just finalizing our bid documents, which have to go through state and federal approvals. But the construction documents are wrapped up at this point. And we are making progress on two other Kim Lamphere funded projects. Our College Creek Connector is moving closer to 30% design. And then our Bay Ridge Avenue Bikeway should be going out to bid for design phase in the next month. Some of these are just a bit behind schedule for sure, but moving along. And I think that's it from my end. Will?
Yep. Just a reminder that February 20th, there's an Access Annapolis Symposium. Just be on the lookout for that. We'll release a presser soon, and I'll send information to you all. But it's going to be in Annapolis at the Graduate Hotel, February 20th. And it's about all things micromobility, biking, transportation. Should be interesting. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Anne Arundel County.
Hi. So I just got back from Aruba 2 days ago. So I'm still trying to catch up and get back into the swing of things, but I don't really have a lot to report on other than we're gearing up to advertise soon, as soon as we get our agreement signed for the Safe Routes to School coordinator. And we're looking forward to starting meetings with the state to keep on top of everything together. We also are trying to establish our micromobility program. We have to write a scope and send out the RFP soon for that. Yeah, and I can't think of anything else right now. I'm sure I'm missing something, but I'm still on Aruba.
Hey, I'll jump in real quick if I may.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, our Broadneck Trail, which extends from the B&A Trail in Severna Park to Sandy Point State Park on the Chesapeake Bay, is essentially done. There's still a few punch list items, so it's not officially open, but there's nothing blocking it. A 9-mile trail right to the Chesapeake Bay. You may also know that the MDTA released their preferred alternative for the Chesapeake Bay Bridge replacement. It has a separately priced option for a bike ped lane on it that is a protected lane. And Anne Arundel County has advocated for inclusion of that, as have a coalition of 56 organizations. It'll be coming out for public comment soon, and so I would encourage everyone to get behind inclusion of a protected bike ped lane on the Chesapeake Bay replacement. Our Broadneck Trail goes right to the foot of the bridge, and of course, Kent Island already has its existing Cross Island Trail starting at Terrapin Park on the eastern shore side of the bridge. Thanks.
All right. How about Baltimore City?
All right, hello. Tyler has left, so I'll do my update. I'm gonna send his update in the chat. It should have just arrived. And then I'm gonna send a link to the Baltimore City bike counter website that shows our bike counter program on there. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. How about Baltimore County?
Hi, everyone. Big announcement for Baltimore County. I know we're a little behind some of you all, but we just installed our first protected bike lane on Green Summit Road over in Pikesville. So we're very excited about that. So if you happen to be over that way and you want to use the beautiful facility and or just have a look at it, that is there. So we're super excited about that. Hopefully more to come in the future. As far as trail projects, we've got about, I was just counting them while everyone else was talking, about 4 that are going to be 60% design here shortly. So probably we're done at 65%. So we'll be hopefully getting to 100 by the end of the year. So that'll be pretty exciting. So we have quite a few projects, big projects coming down the pipeline at the same time. So.
Great. Thank you very much. Carroll County.
Hi. We're just looking forward over here. First of all, we're pretty short-staffed and we have a long list of to-do things over here. So unfortunately, it's not too much going on, but we are looking forward to wrapping up the Finksburg Bike Ped feasibility study pretty soon. And that we have begun, the steering committee has been meeting for the preliminary design for the spur of the PRG that connects the Freedom Park to McKeldin segment of the PRG. And looking forward to getting that going.
All right, thank you. Harford County.
Hello everyone. So pretty much there's no new updates. So thank you.
Okay. Howard County.
Hi, this is Chris Ito of Howard County. So our main activity right now is we're gearing up for our annual transportation open house in Howard County. It's next week on the 29th in the afternoon at Wild Lake High School. We are also getting ready this year to update our bicycle master plan. It's about 10 years old and it's due for an update. So we're going to be doing kind of a soft launch for outreach for that at the Transportation Open House, but then we'll be having additional workshops for the Bike Howard update in starting late February and into March. So we're doing a pretty rapid but comprehensive round of outreach. We're going to have 4 workshops in different parts of the county, finalizing the dates there, but they're going to be in late February and into March. And then I know Tanya mentioned the Safe Routes to School coordinator. We're at a similar stage in Howard County with a Safe Routes to School coordinator funded through MDOT funding. So we're going through that process as well. And looking forward to really kicking that off in 2026. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And I will do Queen Anne's County. We will be in the process of putting in a build grant for a potential bridge crossing Route 50 to connect our South Island Trail and our Cross Island Trail. And in addition to that, we're continuing construction on our Kent Island South Trail. So we're busy with that. Next, we have MDE.
Hey, no updates from me today. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Department of Planning.
Hi, no updates for us today. Thanks.
All right. Moving right along, the Safety Office.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, as David mentioned, and most of you know, our highway safety grants are open now through the end of February. You can reach out to myself or Julie Quetter about any questions you may have for a grant through our office. As Meg also mentioned too, I will drop a link. PBEAT is on February 2nd, 10 a.m. There is a virtual option that will be posted on our website. And if you receive my emails, you'll get that with the agenda shortly. And the last thing that I'll plug in is that a couple of us locally have been working with the VRU, the Vulnerable Road Users Planning Committee for Lifesavers. Lifesavers is a national conference that focuses on all emphasis areas and all disciplines of traffic safety. That will be in Baltimore, April 19th through the 21st. Cindy and I and Shayna from the city, we've been working hard on the VRU tracks, and I think that there are going to be some really good ones. So the registration is open. Early bird ends, I believe, the middle of next month. So if you're interested, make sure you get on that. And that's pretty much all we have right now.
All right, thank you. Maryland Transit Administration.
Nothing here. Thank you.
All right. SHA.
Hi, we are currently wrapping up development of the Elk Ridge Bicycle Pedestrian Priority Area Plan. That should be done within the next few weeks and published hopefully sometime next month. And then also next month, we're going to start development of the Wilkins Avenue BPPA plan. And that is in Baltimore County near Catonsville, Arbutus area. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you. And the secretary's office.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Well, you've already heard a lot from me. Besides grants and micromobility, you heard from a couple of our grantees for safe routes to schools. For those grantees, we developed a coordinator toolkit, and Chris and Tanya, it's fresh in your inbox. For everyone else, it'll be online soon, but we gave our partner jurisdictions first look. We'll be discussing on Friday. On this past Friday, we held the Maryland Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, the quarterly meeting, and we have a new registration. We're trying to get more participation with the advisory committee and our calendar. So keep an eye out for registration for the next meeting. But on the website, there's also the annual report, which was just adopted. And then for this group, I think most of the players have already signed up for my mailing list, but the Trails Subcommittee will be meeting February 13th. So the Trails Subcommittee of MBPAC. I had something else, but now I've forgotten. If I think of it, I'll put it in the chat.
Meg, MB PAC legislative letter and Chesapeake Bay Bridge letter.
Yep, those are also, I think, already updated on the website. So MBPAC did vote on which legislative bills that have been released to date that they put their support behind, and also that letter of support for the Bay Bridge crossing. So a lot of good stuff coming out of MBPAC. And then, okay, thanks, David. David reminded me of the other thing. We have met with BMC about sidewalk data and collecting local bike ped plans. As part of our Complete Streets policy implementation, our engineers are checking local plans, and we're trying to have a GIS database for them. So we'll be reaching out county by county next, and really have to applaud BMC for doing a lot of the work of compiling your GIS layers, but we also still want to have a one-on-one with counties just to talk through how we can keep getting your bike ped plans, make them available for SHA engineers, and make sure that we are integrating your new facilities into our One Maryland, One Centerline linear referencing system. So if you see an email from me or David with a poll, we'd really appreciate getting something on the calendar. If the dates we propose don't work, we can reschedule another time, but we're going around the state to all the counties.
Thank you very much. And the last one is BMC.
Relating to that, BMC, does our regional bicycle facilities inventory, which includes all existing and planned bikeways in the Baltimore region. And so this is incorporating all the great info that we got from you and all the updates that we did as a part of the Bikeable Baltimore Region project. That includes the entire network. So we're in the process of updating the online app for that with the new data, and that'll include the existing bikeways in the region, and that should go live to the public soon. So we'll let you know when that happens. And then we'll also send member jurisdictions the inventory geodatabase with all the planned and existing bikeways as we've done in the past. And then let's see, we'll also be at the Howard County Transportation Open House sharing information on BBR and the Long Range Transportation Plan. And let's see, the Patapsco Regional Greenway branding and signage project. An update for that is the team's been working to finalize the PRG logo that's being developed as a part of this project. And they've also been working on developing signage guidelines. Another PRG project is the operations and maintenance guidelines. So the consultant is working on the draft guidelines at this moment, and we'll submit it soon to BMC for review, and then that'll then be shared with the steering committee and stakeholders for their input. And one more project for me is the TLC project, the Baltimore Greenway Trail Network Design Standards Manual. So this project will establish consistent design and accessibility standards for the Baltimore Greenway Trail Network. And the team has reviewed existing plans and policies. They've developed a summary of case studies of trails from other regions, and they're beginning to develop a typology framework that aligns trail standards with land use contexts. So Keith or Anna, did you have any updates on your TLC or PRG projects or anything else?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, we did get signatures for the Elk Ridge to Guinness section of the Patapsco Regional Greenway from Baltimore County. So we just forwarded that to Howard County for their signatures, and that's going to help us look at a study to redesign to actually avoid the Guinness property. So we're getting closer to getting back on track with that project. So that's good news that we're getting close to moving on forward again.
That seems to be all the BMC updates. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before BPAG? Since I'm not hearing anything, I'll just ask everybody to keep in mind that Wednesday, March 18th will be the next meeting, and I know Charlene will be sending out an invite to all of us. So thank you for your time, and I'm not sure, Charlene, if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
Yep, that's all. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.